Welcome back to On the Horizon podcast, hosted by Jesse Sage and Melrose Michaels. First, we want to thank you so much for becoming a premium subscriber and supporting our podcast. This is going to get you exclusive unheard and unseen footage from each interview we have on the horizon. So first, let's dive in with Lotus Lain.
And especially for people that come into this industry because they have an adverse reaction to the way traditional job and workplaces are. These are all just barriers to just survival, basically, what it comes down to.
Yeah. No, I think that's right, because I haven't, I say I'm doing that now, but I haven't always done that because it's a lot. It's a lot to try to figure out. Like, and I'm like, I don't know. Am I making it? I'm not sure. Let me, I don't know, because I can't even remember what platforms I'm on, the other day I got like a random email that said I had a sale from a platform I forgot I had. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That's what made me remember Sex Panther. And I was like, oh, duh, how could I forget?
But it shouldn't be this hard. And I think that the point that you're bringing up about like disability is important, because there are people in the industry who are like running their sex work business like a business with spreadsheets and, expense and loss documents. But there are a lot of people for whom like that's not even a possibility, and I think a lot of people who are in this because they have other like barriers. And I think it's important to think about like the complication of this industry, like how does that impact different groups of people?
Right. Yeah. I agree. Because to be quite honest, the whole reason sex work is like the world's oldest profession is because at any level it's possible to do it and survive from it. And I think what you're saying, the barriers to entry are making this like historically accessible profession so unbelievably hard. And I think it's only in the way to favor the mindsets of people that are like, see, we told you sex work is terrible. We told you it'll just lead you to a life of like despair and detriment. And it's like, no, what leads me to despair is not being able to like figure out 10 different payment platforms in 1 month because the main one decided to change things up at the last minute or something.
Yeah, that's interesting. I actually haven't heard somebody say that like that. That we should spend, more energy on these like payment processors than on like politicians, because kind of the collective like wisdom of sex worker rights organizations is like, get to the politicians, get to the lawmakers. Yeah. But our culture is changing. I feel like, and there's so much more power in like corporate. Corporate interest in big business. And so getting to the businesses needs to also be a part of that strategy.
Yeah. I'm definitely not saying abandon speaking to politicians and lawmakers, but I think one thing that may have been neglected is the power that payment processors have over us. They process our payments that go into our bank accounts. So it's like the bankers and the credit card companies are, I think, where we need to take our focus to next, as far as how we legitimize ourselves, who we petition ourselves to see us as full humans and respectable workers, or whatever the fuck they need to hear.
Yeah.
And as far as Bitcoin goes, because I know a lot of people think of like Bitcoin is going to be what takes over and stuff. I would love to say I think that that's true, but I honestly don't. I feel like Bitcoin will have a segment and a sector where people can still make money off of it, and they can thrive and flourish in that way. But I think it just has not been adopted in the way that people want it to be, in order for it to really be like a replacer for credit card companies or money. I'm saying it needs to be adopted not just by us, the sex workers, but by our paying customers, regular average Joe. Right. And I don't see those.
That's the piece people forget.
Yeah, I don't see those people as quickly jumping into having a coin wallet and all that,
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember talking to when Eve Knox and was over at Spank Chain. She told me when I interviewed her about this that like only 2% of customers pay for their porn or something like that. And then
crypto?
At all. You know, wow. And only 1% of those like use
1% of the 2%.
Oh my God.
Use crypto. Like, I might have the numbers slightly off, but it was something like astronomical like that. Like, and she's like, it's such a small market of like consumers who are willing to, first of all, pay for their porn and then pay for it with crypto. Like there's 2 hurdles that you have to like jump through.
And then there's also the piece of like, I think that Bitcoin and blockchain, here nor there, but I have a partial interest in a tech company that works on technologies like these, like cryptocurrency, blockchain, stuff like that. But even my own view on cryptocurrency, while I think it might have a place in the future, I think we're like not there yet.
Yeah.
And also it's such a volatile type of currency. Like if you pay me for something in cryptocurrency and I give you a custom video, what have you, and then the next day that currency tanks, I just gave you something for next to nothing.
Yeah.
Like people miss that piece.
Has a value for something that now has no value.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll get there. I don't think it's anytime soon.
Yeah.
I want to also just add like a little sprinkle here too, because for my background with like the webcam kind of space, the big one we did back in the day was Gift Rocket. It was like like a cash exchange. I have no idea. I haven't heard of it.
I think
ever.
They stopped.
I think they tanked because I did like
because I used to do Gift Rocket sometimes too, but like I think they started shutting down sex worker accounts too.
I think you're right. Because I did like an hour Skype show for like, I want to say it was like $300. And then the next day they had refunded the money. And I'm like, I thought Gift Rocket, you couldn't do that. And they're like, no, we can. It's like, oh, okay. So now I've got nothing. Great.
And oh my goodness. I just saw recently a girl on Twitter said that someone showed her a screenshot of a gift that they got her from her Amazon wish list. So she sent him her, thank you video or picture or whatever. And then like they canceled the gift or they did something or it was like a fraud. And I was like, even that, like, do not send gifts or thank yous until your present, whatever they got you, is in your hand, is in your bank account. Like not in limbo, not in the 1 to 2, 3 days from PayPal to your bank account. In your bank account, add it your total, your balance, and then you can send the thank yous. No, I have dealt with that with Amazon gift cards. So I'll say like, thank you. I'll like check that out and then have to add it to my Amazon account. And sometimes there's scams. Sometimes it's like, this has already been redeemed. And I'm like,
you're full of it. I had the other version of that where when I was really heavy into live webcam, what people would do is they'd buy you a wish list gift off your page, whatever. You'd go and you'd see it as marked purchase. And then they would cancel it. And then when you cancel a wish list item, it will then display the address to them. So then they would get my delivery, like it was a PO box, thank God. Yeah. Once you cancel it, it shows you where it was going to go. Because when they purchase, it's hidden.
That is so awful. Why would they even implement something like that?
I have no idea. And I don't know if it's still like that. This was, I haven't really seriously canned it now until ePlay. But back then, that was a big one that I was always warning cam girls about. Like if they show you it is purchased, unless it arrives at your house, do nothing and say nothing. Because if they cancel it, they're going to see your PO box or your house address.
Yeah.
Wow.
Next, let's get even more in depth with Maya Morena.
I was thinking about this. I told this story on Twitter about when I was in New York a month ago or something. I was leaving the parking garage at the hotel that I was staying in, and I tried to pay my parking fee with cash, and they were like, "We don't take cash." And I was like, "You don't take money here?" And they were like, "No, we don't take cash. You have to pay with your card." And then they could tell that I didn't like that, and then the guy made a joke and he was like, well, your husband needs to know where you are. Like it should be traceable. And that was creepy. And I didn't like that at all. But we were talking about that. And not only is that like anti-sex work, because I was in New York making cash, but like it was also like, causes all kinds of problems, not only for like workers, but what if you, I mean, that joke isn't funny because what if you are
like a domestic violence person, survivor. Yeah. There's so many versions of that story in which he's damaging.
Yeah.
What could be really serious situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically they think more control and surveillance is protection. So oftentimes it's about protecting women, but they don't actually mean protection. They mean control.
Right.
So they're automating everything. It's really laziness. It's what it boils down to. They want to automate everything.
Yeah.
They don't want to go through the trouble of having a human being count out your cash. Right. And then they want everything to be traceable. Mm-hmm. And so they don't care if they have to exclude undocumented immigrants or poor people or home. Like they just don't care because they want to be able to surveillance and trace everything more.
Right.
Yeah, it's just obviously they'll do anything to like justify it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that he thought that was a joke, but like the fact that all of these businesses, like I'm seeing this more and more, like going into coffee shops and they're like, we're cashless here, or a bunch of
I even see that on the news, that new like Amazon store, you walk in and you grab something and walk out, and it just because you have it in your hand, it charges to your Amazon, like whatever is on file for your Amazon account. Like that's terrifying.
Yeah, you walk into the store and like a camera surveillances you the whole entire like it's very dystopian. But this is just the future that they want, where everything is very tightly controlled and for your convenience. So it's they always say that like Facebook does the same thing where like they technically take your data from everywhere else and they surveillance you, but they're like, think about the convenience though. We can find other people that all over the world. Because we took away your privacy. How convenient. The price you pay is your soul.
Yeah. Maybe you might not know the answer to this, but it just came across my mind. In terms of being undocumented, one of the things I know is you can't really do, obviously, is fill out a job application because you have to certify that you're a U.S. citizen and check that box. A lot of people do it anyway, but I do know that it could complicate the naturalization process down the road if you've ever signed that kind of job application. Does that kind of signing of a contract apply to something like a 2257 since you've done like online content? Do undocumented workers sign 2257s?
What's a 2257?
It's like
I have a bad memory.
It's the thing that like if you're going to trade content with somebody that you sign so that you're like
above board. I guess.
If Mel and I were going to like shoot a scene together, we would have each other sign 2257s to say like, this is me and you're allowed to release
and you're of age.
And
oh yeah. In the porn industry, I did that all the time. So I have DACA and it gives me the right to work temporarily. So every 2 years I have to renew it. Mm-hmm. So the US creates these temporary work programs for some immigrants, but we're like a privileged minority within the undocumented community. Yeah. And so I have a driver's license and it looks like any other person's driver's license and a work authorization card. And I have a social security card number. Yeah. I just filled it out like anyone else. Yeah. And unless I tell them, like they don't really know, I don't fill out the I'm a US citizen tab. I fill out the I'm authorized to work in the US tab. And then you have to like usually tell them what form of ID you have. Mm-hmm. So that's usually how it's done.
Yeah. I know even the IDs can be really difficult. If you're undocumented, it's near impossible to get a driver's license, obviously. But there are, I think, 2 states in the U.S. I think it's New York and Illinois that will still issue a driver's license without a birth certificate, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that that's a big piece of this is if you don't have any driver's license, state ID, anything, you can't verify on these platforms. And then you're just part of the class of laborers that can't legally work even. Mm-hmm. And that's the issue.
It depends. There's a lot of complicated situations. So I would say most undocumented immigrants have IDs. It's just that the government rejects their application or they have limited time slots on legality and they do it on purpose. So like I personally have a birth certificate and all the other documentation from Honduras. And some people lose their IDs, both legal immigrants and undocumented and citizens, sometimes because of abusive relationships or moving. So it's definitely something that impacts everybody, but now everyone has to have like IDs in all these forms. And it is a bit crazy.
That's always like amazing, like horrific to me when you see like all of the, and they're so like transparent about it too when they report these stories of like busts and they say like, oh, we found all these trafficking victims and now they're in jail, and you're like,
victims, you said victims.
They're in jail now, like,
or they'll be like sometimes they try to sugarcoat it. So you'll see this with a lot of anti-trafficking orgs. They'll say, yeah, we found a bunch of trafficking victims. Often they mean sex workers, and they're we helped them get back home. We deported them. We deported them. And they'll be like, we helped them. They really, or they'll say things like, we gave them a lot of options, a lot of help. Basically, the option they gave them was you have to be institutionalized for 2 years in our organization. That will force you to like pray to Jesus and not do drugs or drink alcohol and have all your phone calls monitored and be fenced in. And they'll claim like, we build these huge fences and wire fences to, protect them from the traffickers. It's literally a prison. Like that's really, that's why they monitor their phone calls.
Is this like, are you referencing like an immigration facility or something separate?
No, these are anti-trafficking organizations, but they often work with border control and ICE and federal agents. So usually they send the police to raid an immigrant workplace, and then the police will determine who is a trafficking victim. And then they will bring in the anti-trafficking organization and they will interview them again to figure out which one is a trafficking victim or not. And then they will offer help, which is to be institutionalized. And usually in these institutions, they also teach them how to work. They give them like a thing where they teach them how to sew or how to work retail. And they work for free. And if they're good enough, then they get hired. So they partner up with companies like Walmart or like whatever companies are involved in it.
Really exploitive, really big.
Yeah, and then they all get to collectively brag about this. The police, the company, the nonprofit. We are helping trafficking victims and saving the world from slavery. And then if they turn it down, if they say no or they violently are against it, they just deport them.
I want to, because I have a dear friend that the way that she was able to get naturalization is she had a violent crime from a U.S. citizen against her, and that was kind of her route and pathway to citizenship. How come sex workers or the people that are assuming they're trafficking victims, how come they can't take that right to like legalization to say like, this is a crime against me from a U.S. citizen, if that's the circumstance, if it is a U.S. citizen, and take that way to naturalization versus, I was trafficked and now I'm in an institution, now I'm getting deported?
You can do that. There's another visa called the U visa, which means that if a crime was committed to you on American soil, like domestic violence or stuff like that, you can try to get a work visa that way. And that opens up a pathway for you to eventually become a citizen. Mm-hmm. But again, like going through this legal process takes years and it's really hard. Yeah. So the U visa is actually a lot more popular. And they always meet their cap. I believe it's 10,000. Okay. But there's actually a wait list because so many people apply to that one. Mm-hmm. Wow. This is where we get to the other problem, which is that most people do not identify as trafficking victims. Like how many undocumented immigrants or sex workers do you know that are like, I am a trafficking victim. I am a modern day slave. Yeah. Most people just don't identify with that label. And the media depictions of trafficking makes it so that many just don't.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you're only listening to trafficking victims, it means you're ignoring a lot of trafficking victims who don't identify with that label.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting too.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that there's anything that like we didn't ask you about or didn't consider in terms of like what the additional hurdles undocumented sex workers have?
I mean, there's so many, you could talk forever about it, but I think we covered a lot. So I'm undocumented and I fight for the decriminalization of sex work, but it's not going to have an impact on me, really. I mean, it'll make me live less in fear, but it would still be illegal for me to do it. It's kind of like the same thing with weed legalization or decriminalization, is that it's still illegal for undocumented immigrants.
Yeah.
So, we just need like a pathway to citizenship or just automatic citizenship or some kind of protections. Yeah. Because otherwise, even if it's legal for everyone else, it's still going to be illegal for us.
Seems like that's like how things work like across the board, because like in the two places where there's full decriminalization, it's only full, like in South Wales and Australia and in New Zealand, like it's only decriminalized for citizens.
Yeah.
And also, like, I remember looking this up in Canada, where they have more of a Nordic model there. And when I was doing a little bit of research on that, it also said there that like it's decriminalized to sell, except if you're like a non-citizen. And so I know that the student work visa in particular in Canada actually says that you can work, except you can't work in the sex industry. Like it spells it out like very specifically. And so
crazy.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point that you bring up, which is that like decrim by itself, like even in places where it's been fully decriminalized or partially decriminalized or whatever, like that only counts for citizens. And I don't know why that would be. That doesn't make any sense.
It's like saying that it's highlighting the class, almost the classist of it, because it's like our citizens, it's okay for you to do, but if you're not from here, you can't sleep with or full service like our. It doesn't make any sense. It's just
It's so anti-trafficking policy was historically really racist. So like the Mann Act, MANN Act, was often used to criminalize interracial marriage and sex. And so it's about like maintaining the order. So if you notice, a lot of anti-trafficking campaigns, they demonize interracial marriages and sex, because it's almost like if you're a brown woman, the only way you would have sex with a white man is if you were trafficked.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's almost that kind of implication there. So even when you read stories about people who have been harassed by like airplane staff or hospital staff, not hospital staff, hotel staff, they'll often profile interracial marriages and families. There's like an Asian woman who had like a white child, and she says she's like often racially profiled at airports. For trafficking her kid. And I remember this on Twitter, and like a bunch of people in the comments had like similar stories. Yeah. And that's just really bad that that's how trafficking is seen.
Yeah. It's about protecting like whiteness too. It's protecting whiteness. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, keeping everything together, separate. Because we still have segregation in the U.S.
Oh, yeah.
So the FBI's original first like federal job was to police prostitutes. It was called the White Slave Division. And so what they would do is anytime a brothel would open up and there was a new girl, they had to go in and interview the girl to make sure she wasn't trafficked. Mm-hmm. But actually what they were doing was they were working with this new immigrant bureau that was being created. And they would make sure that if she wasn't from the country or if she was of mixed blood, they would make sure she couldn't work. They would deport her.
Wow.
So you could only be white and work in the sex industry.
Yeah, so this is like very, very like deeply entrenched in U.S.
institutions
history.
and systems. Wow.
Yeah, it goes very deep. So anytime I hear women talking about certain things, it's like, oh, I wish you knew how much deeper this goes.
Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed the bonus footage from this episode of On the Horizon, and we look forward to having you tune in next time.